What happens when the biggest conspiracy theory in human history, stops being just a theory?
Right.
Like, what happens when it actually starts being debated under oath on the literal steps of the United States Capitol?
It is a massive reality check.
It really is. I mean, if you're listening to this in your car right now or maybe making breakfast, I want you to genuinely think about that for a second.
Yeah, because we all grew up with this stuff.
Exactly. You grow up hearing about little green men, flying saucers, those like secretive government vaults hidden out in the desert.
Area 51, all of that.
Yeah. And it's always relegated to the fringes. I mean, it's midnight radio shows, it's obscure internet forums, it's science fiction movie plots.
It's entertainment.
Right. But what happens when the people talking about it are no longer just, anonymous voices in the dark?
That is the turning point.
What happens when they are highly decorated military intelligence officers and top-tier investigative journalists and sitting members of the U.S. Congress acting in their official oversight capacity?
Well, I mean, it creates a massive cognitive dissonance. It's incredibly hard to process.
It breaks your brain a little bit.
It does. We have been so culturally conditioned to dismiss this topic, to just, laugh it off.
Yeah, the tinfoil hat crowd.
Right. So when the institutional weight of the United States government actually starts validating it, our brains almost don't know what to do with the information.
We just sort of glitch.
Exactly. We try to categorize it as entertainment because, well, treating it as reality fundamentally rewrites our understanding of the world.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. Today, we are taking a scalpel to some explosive, newly surfaced statements that have come directly from those high-ranking whistleblowers, journalists, and U.S. representatives.
It's a lot to get through.
It is. We are drawing entirely from two incredibly dense, incredibly revealing sources.
Yep.
The first is a series of verbatim excerpts from a recent News Nation interview with Chris Cuomo.
Right, the prime time interview.
Yeah. And the second is this historic multi-speaker congressional press conference that was broadcast by FOX10 Phoenix.
Which was just wild to watch.
Truly, we are going to look at exactly what is being alleged on the record, by whom, and, what it means for you.
But before we really get into the mechanics of this, I think it is crucial to establish our baseline here.
Yeah, let's set the ground rules.
Our goal today is absolutely not to indulge in wild speculation. We aren't putting on tinfoil hats.
No, definitely not.
We are looking strictly at the facts of what is being alleged on the record, under oath, by credible government officials and vetted insiders.
Right, the actual source material.
Exactly. Now, you will hear us mention politically charged figures today.
Like who?
Well, for instance, Republican lawmakers during this press conference explicitly praised President Trump's declassification efforts.
Right. Yeah, and called on him to take further action on this specific issue.
Right, but I want to be crystal clear right out of the gate here. This deep dive is entirely nonpartisan.
100%.
We are not here to endorse any political viewpoints, from the left or the right. Our focus is strictly on reporting the allegations, the actions, and the constitutional questions discussed in these sources.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the very foundation of how we talk about UFOs, or UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena, as the government now officially calls them.
Right, the new rebrand.
Yeah, the whole conversation has fundamentally shifted. For decades, it was all about hardware, wasn't it?
Completely. Nuts and bolts.
It was about blurry photos of metallic discs. It was about craft outmaneuvering our frontline fighter jets over the Pacific.
The tic-tac videos, all of them.
Exactly. But the sources we are looking at today reveal that this is no longer just about titanium alloys or advanced propulsion or anti-gravity.
No, it has moved way beyond that.
We are talking about physical bodies. We are talking about biology.
It is the ultimate paradigm shift. And you see it clearly articulated in the source material by Leslie Kean.
Oh, she's a legend in this space.
She really is. For context, she is the investigative reporter who co-authored that famous 2017 New York Times story.
The one that essentially blew the lid off the Pentagon's secret UAP tracking program.
Exactly. And in our sources, she points out a fascinating timeline regarding how the public Overton window has moved on this.
So?
Well, in 2017, the conversation shifted to technology. The government essentially admitted on the record, like, yes, these craft exist, they are flying in our airspace, and we don't know whose they are.
Which was huge news back then.
Right. But then, in 2023, the conversation ruptured again. It shifted aggressively from technology
And biology.
into biology.
And that rupture was caused almost single-handedly by David Grush.
Yeah, he really broke the dam.
For anyone who doesn't know, Grush is a former Pentagon UAP investigator. He's a highly cleared intelligence officer.
Not just some guy off the street.
No, very serious credentials. And during this congressional press conference, the sheer weight of what is being discussed regarding his testimony is staggering.
It's a heavy stuff.
We aren't just talking about a rumor of a crashed drone in a field. Grush has stated on the record and under oath before Congress that the U.S. government has recovered non-human biologics.
Under oath. That's the key part.
Right. And this wasn't like a slip of the tongue. He is talking about an ultra-secret crash retrieval program that has been operating for decades.
Explicitly tasked with recovering non-human life forms.
Exactly.
What gives this profound weight is the corroboration happening at the highest levels of government. In the press conference, Leslie Kean specifically draws attention to a man named Kirk McConnell.
Right, McConnell.
McConnell isn't some fringe internet personality, you know. He served for decades on the staff of congressional intelligence and defense committees.
He's a serious Washington insider.
Very serious. And Kean notes that McConnell, who was physically standing there at the press conference, was present in highly classified settings where extremely credible sources briefed U.S. senators about these recovered non-human bodies.
Wow. Wait, so senators are getting briefed on alien bodies?
Yes. She specifically names Senator Marco Rubio as a recipient of these briefings.
That is wild.
This isn't secondhand gossip shared over a beer. I mean, these are formal intelligence briefings given to the highest levels of our elected government.
By cleared personnel.
By cleared personnel inside secure facilities.
I want to stop on that for a second because it's so easy to let a phrase like non-human biologics just sort of wash over you.
It sounds so clinical.
Right. It sounds like a lab report. But think about the implications here. It's like, okay, imagine you're a detective looking for a stolen car, right?
Okay.
You open a random garage, pop the trunk, and accidentally find an entire uncontacted civilization living inside.
That's a great analogy.
Grush doesn't just say, hey, we found a body. In the press conference Q&A, a reporter asks him exactly how many species the government is aware of.
And his answer is just...
Yeah.
I had to rewind and listen to it 3 times. He says there are several dozen cases.
Not one, not just Roswell.
No, several dozen. And the descriptive language he uses to categorize these discoveries is perhaps the most paradigm-shattering part of the entire event.
Oh, the continuum thing.
Yes, he explicitly states that he doesn't have the full compendium in front of him, but from what he investigated, he describes the biologics on a continuum.
Okay, so what's on one end of that continuum?
On one end, you have what he calls corporeal bipedal life.
Meaning physical beings that walk on 2 legs.
Right.
Essentially what we might traditionally imagine when we think of a biological entity, you know, flesh, blood, carbon-based.
Operating within the physical constraints we understand.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
then, this is the part that gets me, he says the continuum goes all the way to what he considers sentient plasmoid life.
Sentient plasmoid.
I have to admit, I have genuine awe at that term, sentient plasmoid.
It sounds like sci-fi.
We are talking about plasma, the 4th state of matter. Ionized gas, the stuff that makes up lightning, stars.
Acting with sentience.
Yes, with self-awareness, it completely breaks the biological rulebook.
It really does.
We are so fiercely focused on carbon-based organisms with DNA and cellular structures, and here is a cleared intelligence officer casually mentioning that the U.S. government is aware of and has potentially recovered living, thinking plasma.
It's hard to even wrap your head around.
Like, how does an ionized gas even process stimuli? If a plasmoid is essentially a confined, self-sustaining electromagnetic field, is it like structuring its own internal electrical currents to mimic a neural network?
What's fascinating here is how this connects to the historical context provided by another key figure in our sources.
Oh, Lou Elizondo.
Yes, Lou Elizondo. He is Grush's predecessor in a way.
Yeah.
He ran the ATEP-T program, which was a UAP investigative program for the Pentagon.
Right.
In his interview with Chris Cuomo, Elizondo provides the evolutionary framework for this exact plasmoid concept.
Okay, how so?
He notes that the military has been observing these specific types of phenomena since the 1940s. He brings up the Foo Fighters.
Not the band.
No, not the band. The glowing orbs reported by Allied pilots over Europe during World War II.
Right.
And similar glowing spheres seen constantly over restricted military airspace in New Mexico near our nuclear facilities.
Yeah, objects that didn't have wings, didn't have exhaust plumes, no flight control surfaces.
Exactly.
But they could run rings around our best fighter aircraft.
But Elizondo's crucial point is that they didn't just look different from our technology, they behaved differently.
In what way?
He explains that rather than acting like a pre-programmed probe or a mechanical drone executing a set flight path, these objects behaved and reacted with a specific adaptive intelligence.
Like they were live.
Yes, they reacted to our pilots.
Wow.
They anticipated maneuvers in real time. Elizondo states that it has been heavily speculated inside these programs, based on decades of sensor data and visual observation, that these objects are almost like living organisms.
Rather than nuts and bolts machines.
Right. It completely blurs the line between technology and biology.
Wow.
If a sentient plasmoid is the craft, and the craft is the entity, our entire framework for interacting with them has to change.
If you're listening, I want you to imagine waking up tomorrow, pouring your coffee, opening your news app, and seeing the headline, "Government confirms sentient plasmoid life exists."
It would stop the world.
As Chris Cuomo points out in his interview, if there is life off this planet, or even sharing this planet with us in a form or dimension we don't understand, that is the biggest headline of our lifetime.
Without a doubt.
It dwarfs every political election, every economic crisis, every historical event we've ever recorded.
It absolutely does. But acknowledging that reality immediately introduces a profound logistical, legal, and financial problem.
Oh, yeah, the cover-up part.
Exactly. Because if the U.S. government or factions within it has recovered several dozen non-human biologics across a continuum of species over the course of 80 years.
The immediate, unavoidable questions are, where are they physically keeping them?
Right. How do you contain a sentient plasmoid?
And more importantly, who is paying the massive, decades-long bill to keep a secret of this magnitude hidden from the rest of the world?
Which brings us right to the door of the constitutional crisis. Because you don't hide sentient plasmoids in crashed anti-gravity craft in a standard military warehouse at Fort Bragg.
No, you need a completely opaque infrastructure of secrecy.
And according to the sitting members of Congress speaking in our sources, that infrastructure isn't just secretive. It is entirely illegal.
The frustration emanating from the lawmakers at this press conference is just palpable.
You can really hear it in their voices.
And it's rooted in a fundamental breakdown of the U.S. Constitution. We hear extensively from Representative Tim Burchett, who has been one of the most aggressive bulldogs on this issue.
He does not hold back.
He details the sheer bureaucratic absurdity of trying to do his sworn constitutional duty, to oversee government programs and military spending. He describes trying to get basic access to SCIFs.
For those who don't know, a SCIF is a sensitive compartmented information facility.
Right. So what does this all mean in practice? Burchett tells a story that is both incredibly funny and deeply, deeply concerning for anyone who cares about civilian oversight of the military.
Yeah, the man bun story.
Yes. He says he's sitting in a secure facility trying to get answers about these specific UAP retrieval programs, and he is blocked by, and this is his exact quote, "some little punk in a man bun."
I mean, you can't make that up.
And this individual, some mid-level intelligence bureaucrat, actually tells an elected U.S. representative that the President of the United States is on a need-to-know basis.
That is just wild.
Think about the arrogance of that. An unelected bureaucrat is deciding what the commander-in-chief of the armed forces is allowed to know about operations being conducted by the military he supposedly commands.
It is the textbook definition of a rogue operation. And Representative Eric Burleson touches on this exact dynamic during the press conference as well.
What did he say?
He notes that the career bureaucrats embedded in these deeply classified legacy programs, they view elected presidents and members of Congress as basically temporary help.
Just tourists passing through.
Right. In their minds, politicians are here today, gone tomorrow, while the program is eternal.
Wow.
But as Burleson correctly points out, keeping the commander-in-chief and the congressional oversight committees in the dark is not an application of classification law. That is a constitutional crisis.
Because Congress has the power of the purse.
Exactly. The U.S. Constitution grants Congress oversight authority precisely to prevent unaccountable factions within the military-industrial complex from operating their own shadow government.
I have to push back on the pure logistics of this, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you're deeply familiar with how federal bureaucracy works, this seems almost impossible to sustain for 80 years.
It does seem crazy.
How can an elected official with the legal authority to oversee military spending be told they aren't cleared for it? If Congress literally controls the purse strings, how is the military paying for underground vaults, recovery teams, and advanced material analysis without Congress seeing the receipt?
It's a massive shell game.
It's like giving a financial advisor your entire life savings to invest, right?
Right.
And when you ask for a basic monthly statement to see what stocks they bought, they look at you and say, sorry, your own money is classified. You don't have the clearance to see what I did with it.
That financial advisor analogy is perfect, actually.
At some point, you just stop giving them money.
Because it highlights the exact mechanism of the deception. The sources explain exactly how this loophole is exploited, and it has to do with the privatization of the secret.
Privatization.
Yes. Representative Burchett explains that the government doesn't keep the most sensitive crashed materials or these biological entities in highly publicized federal facilities like Area 51 anymore.
Really?
He says if Congress demands to go audit Area 51, all they're going to get is a T-shirt.
A T-shirt?
Because the base is just a distraction at this point. The actual materials have been moved into private corporate entities.
He uses the hypothetical example of the Ford Motor Company, right?
Yes, he does.
To illustrate how a private business operates differently under the law than a federal agency.
Exactly. He uses Ford as a stand-in for major aerospace and defense contractors.
Like Lockheed or Raytheon.
Right. If the military recovers a crashed, non-human craft, and they keep it at a military base, that craft is government property.
Which means it's subject to government audits, inspector general investigations, and congressional subpoenas.
But if the military immediately hands that crashed craft over to a private aerospace contractor under the guise of an advanced materials research contract, the legal landscape changes overnight.
How so?
That private contractor is completely immune to FOIA requests.
The Freedom of Information Act.
Exactly.
Because FOIA only applies to federal agencies. You cannot send FOIA requests to Lockheed Martin or Boeing and demand they open their corporate vaults to the public.
Precisely. The government effectively outsources the secret to private industry, shielding it behind the veil of corporate proprietary rights and intellectual property law.
So sneaky.
The contractor takes the material, studies it using their own internal research funds, and then claims any resulting discoveries as their own proprietary trade secrets.
So Congress can't look at it because it's corporate IP, and the public can't FOIA it.
But to answer your question about the money, how do they fund this massive shadow operation without Congress seeing the receipts?
Well, where is the cash coming from?
This is where the numbers discussed in the press conference get absolutely terrifying. Representative Jared Moskowitz brings up the financial black hole at the Pentagon.
Oh.
He explicitly states that there are trillions of dollars missing at the Pentagon.
Trillions, with a T.
Trillions with a T.
Which is an unfathomable amount of money. And David Grush backs this up from an investigative standpoint, doesn't he?
He does. He mentions that during his official duties, his investigation uncovered slush funds to the tune of billions of dollars per year used to secretly fund these hidden activities.
Billions a year, adding up to trillions over the decades. We're talking about a parallel economy operating completely in the dark. It means every time the Pentagon fails an audit, which they do consistently, year after year, it's not just bureaucratic incompetence or misplaced spreadsheets.
No, it's intentional.
It's a deliberate diversion of taxpayer wealth into unacknowledged black budget programs.
Which brings us to the legal framework of this secrecy. What's fascinating here is how David Grush expertly dismantles the government's standard excuse for classifying this information.
Because they always say it's for national security, right?
Exactly. The Pentagon usually falls back on a blanket national security defense. But Grush specifically cites Executive Order 13526.
What's that?
This is the foundational order that governs classified national security information in the United States.
Okay.
Grush points out that under Section 1.7 of this specific executive order, it is entirely, strictly unlawful to use the classification system to hide embarrassment,
Makes sense.
to hide criminal activity, to hide the misappropriation of funds, or to hide basic scientific information about the universe.
Wow. So, let me get this straight. If the government discovers non-human biology
Right.
and then siphons billions of taxpayer dollars to private contractors to hide that discovery
Mhm.
and then classifies the whole operation, they aren't protecting national security.
Yeah.
They are breaking their own foundational classification laws to protect themselves from criminal prosecution for stealing the money.
Precisely. It is a self-licking ice cream cone of illegality.
That is insane.
And the societal danger of this cannot be overstated. When Grush is asked by a reporter at the press conference about what is fundamentally at stake here, he doesn't just give a sci-fi answer about needing to know our place in the stars.
What does he say?
He warns of an impending catastrophic institutional rot.
Institutional rot.
He says that keeping a secret of this magnitude hidden for this long breaches the fundamental sovereign contract between the citizens and the government.
Yeah, I mean, trust is completely broken.
And he makes a very intense, very deliberate comparison. He says that if the government isn't transparent about this soon, the eventual socioeconomic fallout could be akin to the scandal of the Epstein files.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you really think about what he's saying there, that is an incredibly heavy comparison.
Very deliberate, though.
The Epstein scandal wasn't just about the crimes of one man, right? It was about the realization that an entire network of the most powerful, wealthy, and politically connected people in the world were complicit in a horrific systemic abuse.
And the institutions designed to stop it just looked the other way.
Exactly. It's a deliberate comparison meant to illustrate a multi-generational systemic betrayal of public trust.
Grush is arguing that when the citizenry finally realizes that the very institutions built to protect them, to represent them, and to educate them have been actively lying to them about the fundamental nature of reality.
And illegally stealing trillions of dollars to maintain that lie.
Right. The psychological and societal collapse of trust will be profound. If the government lied about the existence of non-human intelligence, what else are they lying about? It erodes the very foundation of democratic governance.
It's a complete fracturing of reality.
It is.
But if we logically follow the breadcrumbs here, if factions within the government are hiding this much money and moving crashed materials to immune private contractors and actively defying the President of the United States to keep this secret intact,
The stakes are life and death.
the people who actually try to expose the machine from the inside must be facing immense, terrifying danger.
Absolutely.
It isn't just about getting fired, it's about systemic retaliation. And our sources go deep into this, highlighting the specific individuals who have risked their careers and, frankly, their lives to bring this information forward.
The personal toll on these whistleblowers is staggering. And we need to look very closely at David Grush's own situation as he describes it in the press conference.
What's happening with him?
He isn't just a guy who gave a flashy speech and then went home to write a book. He reveals that he is currently locked in ongoing, intense federal litigation with the Department of Defense.
Litigation over what?
Well, he states that after he testified in front of Congress in 2023, doing exactly what he was legally authorized and cleared to do as a whistleblower under the new whistleblower protection laws, the Air Force worked with an external agency to seek a criminal investigation of him.
Under what charge?
Under the Espionage Act.
The Espionage Act. Let's really clarify what that means.
It's as serious as it gets.
That is the 1917 law used to prosecute spies committing high treason against the United States. It's the law they used against Robert Hansen or Aldrich Ames.
Exactly. It carries a potential death penalty, or at the very least, life in a federal penitentiary.
It is a strict liability statute, meaning intent often doesn't even matter.
Right.
They took a decorated intelligence officer who went through the legal, congressionally approved whistleblower channels and threatened him with the most severe criminal charge in the American legal system.
It is pure, unadulterated intimidation.
And the retaliation doesn't stop at the threat of federal prison, does it?
No, it gets deeply personal and administrative. Grush mentions that he is still fighting a prolonged effort by the military to wrongfully withhold his medical military retirement.
Oh, that's just cruel.
They are trying to bleed him out financially, cutting off his health care and his earned pension as punishment for his testimony.
Unbelievable.
But the crucial point the lawmakers make is that Grush is not an isolated case. Representative Burleson specifically names a roster of incredibly brave individuals who have also come forward to the committees.
Who else?
Admiral Gallaudet, Dylan Borland, Jeff Nucatelli. These are not internet conspiracy theorists. These are highly credentialed professionals.
Flag officers and intelligence analysts.
Right, whose careers, finances, and families have been subjected to an avalanche of stress, simply because they believe the American people own this information.
But the retaliation goes far beyond withheld pensions, legal bills, and administrative stress.
It takes a really dark turn.
Yeah, our sources touch on a deeply dark, almost fatalistic underbelly to this cover-up. During the press conference, Representative Burleson explicitly mentions the tragic, unresolved death of a man named Matthew Sullivan.
Sullivan was a would-be whistleblower.
Exactly. Grush confirms that he served on active duty with Sullivan in the Air Force, and critically, Grush confirms that Sullivan worked directly on the Legacy program.
Meaning the deeply unacknowledged, secret UAP reverse engineering programs we've been discussing.
Yes. And the timing surrounding Sullivan's death is what makes it so chilling.
During the Q&A portion, a reporter asks Grush directly about Sullivan, noting the highly suspicious timing that Sullivan died just 2 weeks before he was scheduled to provide his classified testimony to the oversight committees.
2 weeks before he testifies, he dies.
Grush is very careful with his words here. He declines to discuss the specific details of what Sullivan knew, stating that the circumstances of Sullivan's death and his knowledge are currently the subject of an ongoing federal investigation.
He refuses to compromise that investigation.
But the implication hangs extremely heavy in the air. A man who worked on the Legacy program, who was about to blow the whistle, ends up dead right before his testimony.
And later in that exact same press conference, Representative Burchett is asked by the media about rumors of other missing or deceased scientists connected to these reverse engineering programs.
Right, he mentions General McCaslin.
Yeah. And when pressed by the reporters for more details about these disappearances, Burchett doesn't back down. He essentially tells the press pool to use their own investigative instincts.
He uses the used car salesman analogy, right?
Yes, he says, look, if 14 used car salesmen suddenly disappeared in the same town, you'd start asking questions. It wouldn't be a coincidence.
Which is a very clear on-the-record insinuation from a sitting congressman that people who know too much about these private contractor operations and try to talk to Congress are disappearing or dying under mysterious circumstances.
This raises an incredibly important question about the architecture of the system itself.
Right.
Like, how do you expose a corrupt system when the very mechanisms designed for exposing it, the inspector general, the review boards, the internal reporting channels, are controlled by the corrupt actors themselves?
This is the ultimate catch-22 of the classified whistleblower process.
Representative Burleson captures this perfectly when he addresses the critics who say these whistleblowers should have just quietly used the proper channels instead of going public.
What was his response?
It was blistering. He says, to hell with the safe way. Safe way protects the system.
Wow. To hell with the safe way?
Yeah, because if the inspector general is compromised, or if the review board reports directly to the people running the illegal slush funds, going through the proper channels isn't whistleblowing.
It's just giving the shadow government a heads up so they can destroy your career.
Or freeze your pension. Or worse, before you ever reach a congressional committee, it's like calling the mob to report that the mob is stealing money.
Exactly. Which is why the lawmakers in our sources are making a very specific, very urgent plea to the White House.
Right.
Representative Anna Paulina Luna and Representative Burleson are directly asking the President of the United States to intervene.
To do what, exactly?
They're asking the President to waive the non-disclosure agreements, those incredibly restrictive NDAs that currently bind these military and contractor personnel. But more importantly, they're demanding permanent blanket immunity for UAP whistleblowers.
Let's talk about why that immunity is so crucial. If I'm an intelligence officer and I know exactly which Lockheed Martin facility is holding a crashed craft, why can't I just walk up to a microphone and say the address?
Because of the Espionage Act. As Representative Luna explains, there are many intelligence officials who know the exact locations of these recovered craft, they know the names of the contractors, and they know the physical addresses of the materials.
Okay.
But because that information is classified at the highest possible levels, even if it is classified illegally to hide the program, revealing those locations to the public, or even to uncleared members of Congress, is technically a violation of the Espionage Act.
So they would be immediately arrested?
And sent to federal prison. Immunity is the only functional way to bypass the legal trap that has been set for them.
Without executive immunity, achieving actual transparent disclosure means asking patriots to willingly go to prison for the rest of their lives.
It really does.
If you are listening to this, I really want you to put yourself in the shoes of one of these military officers for a second. Imagine you are working on a secure base, doing your job, and you inadvertently stumble onto world-changing technology.
You see the biologics.
You see them, you look at the funding, and you realize your own government is illegally hiding this from Congress and the American people. But you also know that if you step forward, your pension will be stripped.
Your family will be bankrupted by legal fees.
You will be charged with espionage, and you might end up mysteriously dead like Matthew Sullivan. The sheer courage it takes to stand at that podium and speak out anyway is unimaginable.
It is. But the cover-up isn't just a domestic issue, is it?
No, it's global.
We aren't just talking about a turf war between the Pentagon, defense contractors, and Congress. The implications of this secrecy bleed directly across borders, which leads us to the geopolitical reality of the situation.
Because while the American public and apparently the American president are being kept deliberately in the dark, our global adversaries are watching these programs very, very closely.
This is where the Pentagon's national security argument actually gets turned around and used against them.
Explain that.
In the press conference, David Grush reveals something deeply alarming regarding international espionage. He states that during his official duties, he reviewed highly classified intelligence showing that foreign adversaries are actively using advanced signals intelligence to spy on U.S. reverse engineering programs.
And Chris Cuomo and investigative journalist Ross Coulthart identify those adversaries in their interviews as likely being China and Russia.
Yes, and here's where it gets really interesting. In that News Nation interview, Chris Cuomo plays devil's advocate to this point.
What does he say?
He basically says, okay, who cares if the Chinese are spying on our UFO tech? That's what they do. We spy on them, they spy on us. Everybody does terrible things in the espionage game.
Right. And on the surface, if you are a casual observer, you might think Cuomo has a point. That's just the game of global geopolitics.
Exactly.
If the United States has a secret alien spaceship tucked away in a hangar, of course Chinese intelligence is going to try to point a listening device at that building or hack the servers. It seems like business as usual for the CIA and foreign intelligence.
I validate that pushback. It is the nature of global espionage. But if we connect this to the bigger picture that Grush is painting, the threat becomes existential.
Existential how?
Grush points out that these U.S. legacy programs are hidden from Congress and the president due to what he explicitly calls high-ego politically appointed actors, operating with incompetence and malicious intent.
Okay.
Because these programs are operating as rogue, siloed entities to avoid congressional oversight, they aren't utilizing the full defensive capabilities of the U.S. government. They are incredibly vulnerable.
Let me see if I have this right. So the terrifying homeland security implication here is that because our own government doesn't have proper oversight of these private contractor facilities,
Right.
foreign adversaries might actually know more about the American crash retrieval programs than the American public, Congress, or even the President of the United States.
Precisely. Let's walk through the game theory of that. If the military hands a crashed craft over to a private aerospace contractor to hide it from FOIA, that contractor now has the physical material. But private contractors, even massive ones, historically have poorer cybersecurity than the NSA or the Pentagon.
Oh, wow.
So if Chinese state-sponsored hackers penetrate that contractor's servers, China now has the UAP data, the material analysis, and the reverse engineering progress.
Meanwhile, the U.S. president is still sitting in the Oval Office being told by some bureaucrat that he's on a need-to-know basis and can't see the files.
Exactly. It is an appalling, catastrophic failure of national defense masquerading as national security. The secrecy is actually endangering the nation.
And it's not just our adversaries who are deeply entangled in this. It's our allies, too. The sources provide incredible documented historical evidence that this cover-up has been a coordinated global effort for decades.
It's not just an American secret.
James Fox, a veteran UAP investigator and documentary filmmaker, spoke extensively at the press conference about a legendary international case. He brings up the 1996 incident in Virginia, Brazil.
The Virginia case is a perfect example of this international dynamic and how the U.S. legacy program projects its power globally.
What happened there?
According to Fox, in January of 1996, a UAP crashed near the city of Virginia. Dozens of first-hand witnesses, including military police, hospital workers, and civilians, reported not just seeing crashed, but having direct physical contact with living, intelligent, non-human beings on the ground in Brazil.
And the critical piece of information Fox shares, which is corroborated by military sources, is that these beings and the craft materials were captured by Brazilian authorities.
And then swiftly flown out of Brazil directly to the United States on U.S. military cargo planes.
And for a long time, Virginia was treated like the Brazilian Roswell, just a local legend or folklore, but it isn't folklore anymore.
No, it's not.
Representative Burleson and James Fox both note in the press conference that the former Brazilian Minister of Defense, a man named Aldo Rebelo, recently came forward on the record and confirmed that the Varginha incident is absolutely true.
But Rello added a massive geopolitical caveat.
What did he say?
He explicitly stated that Brazil has the documentation and the proof, but they will not release it first. He said that if the United States declassified and disclosed their information on this case, since the U.S. took the materials, Brazil would follow suit and do the same.
It perfectly illustrates the domino effect of international disclosure. We are currently locked in a global standoff. Allied nations like Brazil and potentially many others are sitting on explosive confirmations and physical evidence. But they are waiting for the United States, as the global superpower that likely took custody of the most sensitive materials, to flinch first.
No one wants to break the embargo alone.
This is why Representative Luna's final remarks at the press conference included a worldwide call to action, directly challenging foreign countries to break ranks, follow suit, and release what they know to their own citizens.
And this global complicity goes back much, much further than the 1996 Virginia incident.
It does.
Grush drops an absolute bombshell during the Q&A segment when a reporter asks him for advice on where he starts researching. He points the press pool to a specific, declassified 1971 Australian intelligence assessment.
He explicitly says, go to the Australian National Archives, pull this document, and read pages 7 through 16.
According to Grush, this document was written by the nuclear branch chief of the Australian government.
And it explicitly, in black and white, discusses the U.S. cover-up of UAPs and the direct involvement of the CIA back in the early 1970s.
It is the ultimate paper trail. It proves that Allied intelligence agencies have known about and formally documented the U.S. shadow programs for over half a century.
And the intelligence sharing or intelligence leaking is still flowing today, sometimes through incredibly dramatic, almost cinematic channels.
Representative Burleson mentions receiving recent highly classified video evidence, right?
Yeah, he specifically cites MQ-9 Reaper drone footage of a UAP incident off the coast of Yemen. And how did a sitting U.S. congressman get this classified military footage? Did he request it through a committee?
No.
No. He says it was delivered to his congressional office through what he describes as a Tom Clancy-style dead drop.
A dead drop,
Yeah.
like a USB drive left under a park bench or taped under a toilet tank. It sounds like something out of a Cold War spy novel.
Burleson makes such a poignant observation about that, too. He asks, why would any military officer fear bringing vital intelligence information to the United States Congress? They shouldn't.
It is literally Congress's job to receive that information.
But the system is so punitive, so broken, that these patriots have to act like rogue spies against their own government just to get a video of a UAP off the coast of Yemen into the hands of an elected representative.
It encapsulates the absolute severity of the institutional rot Grush was warning us about.
Yeah.
All of this, the dead drops, the missing trillions of dollars, the rogue foreign espionage, the threats of the Espionage Act, it all stems from a historical root.
How did a democratic republic build a shadow government capable of hiding sentient plasmoids and infinite money? During the press conference, a reporter asks Grush about a deeply classified program called Immaculate Constellation.
What's that?
The reporter describes it as an advanced infrastructure designed specifically for the exfiltration of UAP data from federal systems.
Let's translate what exfiltration means in this context. It essentially means a system designed to scrub the truth.
Right.
If a Navy pilot logs a UAP encounter into the standard federal reporting system, Immaculate Constellation is allegedly the mechanism that reaches in, grabs that data, pulls it out of the normal military channels, and hides it in the unacknowledged shadow programs before regular congressional oversight committees can ever see it.
Grush refuses to comment on the specific capabilities or current operational status of Immaculate Constellation, likely because discussing the specific parameters of an active National Security Council program would genuinely violate his security oaths.
But he does confirm the historical origin of the infrastructure that allows a program like that to exist. He states that the absolute secrecy surrounding these National Security Council programs and the legal framework to hide them from Congress started in 1954 through an executive order signed by President Dwight D. Eisenhower.
1954. So we are talking about a bureaucratic machine that was set in motion over 70 years ago. We are dealing with the ghosts of the Cold War.
We really are.
And even before Eisenhower signed that order, James Fox brings up the fascinating history of Dr. J. Allen Hynek.
For anyone who has seen the Steven Spielberg movie, Hynek is the real-life scientist who literally coined the phrase, close encounters of the third kind.
Fox points out that from 1947 to 1969, Hynek worked for the United States Air Force on Project Blue Book, investigating these exact types of UAP cases.
And what did the Air Force do during those decades? They desperately tried to keep it secret and minimize the phenomenon.
Hynek eventually became a whistleblower in his own right, revealing that the military's goal was to confuse the public by blaming highly credible reports of non-human craft and beings on weather balloons, swamp gas, and mass hysteria.
If we synthesize this timeline, a very clear, very disturbing picture emerges. A culture of absolute secrecy was initiated in 1947, right around the time of the Roswell incident.
Right.
It was officially codified into the deep state infrastructure by President Eisenhower in 1954 as a necessary Cold War measure to prevent the Soviets from getting advanced technology.
But over the decades, that infrastructure metastasized. It grew from a post-World War II national security initiative into a bureaucratic corporate monster.
It now operates entirely outside the bounds of the democracy it was meant to protect. It has completely lost its original mandate and is now simply protecting its own existence, its own power, and its own multi-billion-dollar slush funds.
But the narrative that originally justified that secrecy in the 1950s, the patronizing idea that the public would panic, that religious institutions would crumble, and that society would collapse if we knew we weren't alone in the universe, is so incredibly archaic today.
Representative Moskowitz addresses this psychological aspect directly in our sources.
What does he say?
He says he gets asked constantly by his constituents what the government actually knows about UFOs. And his conclusion after talking to the public is simple and profound. The American people can handle it.
I completely agree with him. Our society is hungry for transparency, not paternalistic protection. We carry supercomputers in our pockets that connect us to the entirety of human knowledge. We are looking at high-definition images from the edge of time captured by the James Webb Space Telescope.
We are debating artificial intelligence and quantum computing.
Exactly. The 1950s idea that modern citizens would dissolve into chaotic, rioting mobs if we learned about non-human biology or sentient plasmoids is a massive insult to modern human resilience.
Which brings us to the philosophical core of this entire debate. Leslie Kean delivered perhaps the most powerful statement of the entire press conference regarding this exact point.
She asked a fundamental question about authority.
She did. By what right does any institution, military or corporate, withhold the confirmation of what may be the single most consequential scientific discovery in the history of our species?
Her defining quote, which summarizes the entire disclosure movement, is, "Knowledge that we are not alone does not belong to any government or military. It belongs to all of humanity."
That gave me chills when I read it.
Yeah.
Because it perfectly distills the stakes. This isn't just about geopolitics or FOIA requests or missing tax dollars anymore.
It is about fundamental human knowledge. It's about our ultimate context and place in the cosmos.
Who are we as a species to be denied our own reality because a defense contractor wants to maintain a monopoly on reverse-engineered technology, or because a bureaucrat doesn't want to admit they've been lying for 80 years?
That is the crux of where we find ourselves today. We have transitioned from asking the question, are they real, to demanding, give us back our reality.
Exactly. Give us back our reality.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today, and before we close, I want to briefly recap the sheer, overwhelming magnitude of what we've discussed from these sources.
That's a lot.
We started with the shocking, under-oath testimony from a cleared intelligence officer about the recovery of sentient plasmoids and several dozen species of non-human biologics on a vast continuum of life.
We then navigated the incredibly complex maze of missing trillions of dollars, exploring how that money is siphoned off, and how physical crash materials are funneled into private corporate entities to make them legally immune to FOIA requests and congressional oversight, creating a profound constitutional crisis.
We examine the severe, devastating human cost of this secrecy. The brave whistleblowers who are risking their freedom under the Espionage Act, facing the loss of their pensions, and dealing with the chilling specter of unresolved deaths like that of Matthew Sullivan.
We looked at the global geopolitical threat, realizing that because our own programs are rogue and siloed, Foreign adversaries might actually know more about our hidden tech than our own president.
And we saw how allied nations like Brazil are standing by, waiting for the U.S. to end an 80-year embargo on the truth.
And as we close this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. It's a thought experiment that isn't explicitly stated in the sources, but it is built directly and logically upon everything these whistleblowers and lawmakers have alleged today.
Let's hear it.
If a sentient plasmoid or a highly advanced biological entity was recovered decades ago, as David Grush alleges,
Okay.
and if private defense and aerospace contractors have been studying its biology and its advanced technology in secret, using billions of dollars in unacknowledged funds without any government oversight, what scientific, medical, or technological breakthroughs exist right now, locked away in a corporate vault?
How?
If they understand how a craft manipulates gravity, do they understand how to generate limitless clean energy? If they understand the biology of a being that can survive interstellar travel or interdimensional transit, do they have advanced medical treatments?
Like cures we don't even know exist.
Could there be a discovery sitting in a Lockheed or Boeing server right now that could change the human condition overnight? Perhaps curing diseases or solving the climate energy crisis that is being deliberately hidden simply because keeping the secret is more profitable for the contractor than sharing the cure with humanity.
That is a staggering, infuriating thought. And it's a question that demands an answer from our elected officials. I really want you to remember that what we discussed today isn't a pitch for a new sci-fi movie.
No, it's very real.
It isn't a Reddit thread. This is an ongoing, real-time congressional battle being fought right now over your tax dollars, over your constitutional rights, and over your right to the fundamental truth of human existence. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep looking for the truth, and stay infinitely curious.